Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Art Discourse. Today is a very special episode. I have with me Mr. Luc Travers with me. He is a very famous star of the Objectivist movement. He is well known to anyone who has ever come to any OCON. You know Luc. And to anyone who hasn't come to OCON, come next year to meet Luc. Luc, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm Luc. I like art. I teach literature and art appreciation. I've been doing it for almost 20 years now. My most recent book, Jonathan, you have the book, right?
Yes,
Stories
of course,
in Paint.
Of course, right here.
Okay, good, excellent.
Right
Yeah. Hold that up close. Yeah, that's great, excellent. So I've got that book that I'm really happy with, really proud of.
Beautiful book.
So that's it. Is anything else I should say? I don't know.
I think that's good. So,
Okay.
all right, Luc. So you are an expert in the visual arts. Is that correct? Or you want to be more specific?
Maybe I'll be more specific about that. I would say I have spent a lot of time thinking and working on how to enjoy the visual arts, and also other art forms like literature, especially, of which I've been teaching literature classes for 18 years, I think. 18 years, yeah. Okay, so that I don't know much about painting, or I don't know much about the history of art and the visual arts. I know a little bit. I got a degree in it, but I don't know. I haven't spent my time with that. So I think you can narrow it down a little bit even more to what the audience does in the experience, not necessarily what the artist does.
Okay, that's great. So let us start from the very beginning, shall we? We are dealing in art. Specifically, this episode will deal in the visual arts. First time in the channel, even though usually I write about paintings and sculpture most of the time. I had the privilege of having music experts and people from the architecture world. This time I'm very honored and very privileged to have someone like you. So let us start from the very beginning. What is art, Luc? And don't give us the boring definition, okay? Make it
all right. So yeah, you want the definition, like what is art in general, that encompasses music, that encompasses theater, that encompasses.
We can start with that and narrow it down.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like the Supreme Court justices when they were asked about pornography. I kind of know it when I see it. I don't know. This is a U.S. thing, but I would say I'm still working on formulating a definition for art, especially as it compares to a lot of other kinds of experiences that are similar to art. And I think one question when I think of a definition, I think to myself, okay, what is the use of this definition? Why do I need this definition? And at different points in my life, I've needed it for slightly different reasons. So I'll give you one example. When I was a teenager and just starting to discover the visual arts a little bit, I came across, of course, modern art and abstract art. And I was asking myself, okay, I'm reacting to this beautiful painting by William Bouguereau very differently than I'm reacting to this Mark Rothko, two swaths of color, just plain color. And so I needed something to help identify, are these two of the same species, or are they different from each other? And so that's when I came across Ayn Rand's definition of art. Art is a recreation of reality according to metaphysical value judgments of the artist, something like that. And that helped me differentiate. Oh, art is recreating a reality, not necessarily focusing on, oh, here's some nice colors, or here's some brushstrokes, or here's some composition of shapes. And so at that time, that helped me set aside, all right, this is what I'm going to treat as art. I can enjoy this recreation of reality. But then later on, in order to get there's another little problem I had to try to define what art was. And that had to do with less about the artwork itself and more about the whole experience of the art. Because you can experience art very different ways. You can listen to music in the elevator, or you can go to the symphony concert. You can watch a movie on your iPhone while you're being distracted by emails, or you can go to the movie theater You can, flip through some postcards of artworks or go see the painting at the Louvre. And you can have a different state of mind as you're experiencing the artwork. You can be fully focused. You can have your stream of consciousness going full bore and be thinking about things. Or you can just be kind of passive and just respond emotionally, however it is. So there are different forms. And so the second kind of the definition that intrigued me for art is not necessarily what the artwork is, but what is the art experience? And so that's something that I've been trying to identify more of. What's the definition of having an artistic and aesthetic experience? So that, I might tweak Ayn Rand's definition a little bit. I don't know. Jonathan,
we can do Luc's definition.
I just want to establish this. All this, what we're talking about here is really fascinating to me because I don't get the opportunity to think about it a lot because I spend more of my time in the weeds with the art rather than looking at the bigger picture of things. And so this conversation is great for that. So I'll give you, when I give you that definition that Ayn Rand has for art, recreation of reality, according to artists' metaphysical value judgments. So what I might tweak is, okay, an art experience is the experience of an alternate reality, a recreated reality, looking for something in particular, looking for, I guess we're going to call it the sense of life or the metaphysical value judgments, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of the audience, not the artist at this point. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that I just want to lay groundwork there, and I can have some more discussion about that if you're interested, or we could go.
Yeah, absolutely, we could do that, and I think it's very interesting to me. My experience with art is, and my interest is mm-hmm. quite not similar to your interest. Mm-hmm. You coming from very, as you said, you are interested in the experience, and I'm also very much interested in that, and I'm interested in the aesthetic experience of things in general, not only in art. Very much interested, but particularly in art, I'm more interested. If anyone here has saw any of my writings, I'm more interested in the more philosophical, in the more analytical part of studying art, and mm-hmm. I think that's why this conversation is particularly interesting. Our direction is different, but we both like to enjoy the art as well. Mm-hmm. I think you enjoy art much better than I enjoy art, and probably you know, of course, you know much better than I am how to enjoy the art. But I still think it's very important to also to, if you're interested in that, to learn about what kind of metaphysical views does this painting imply? What does the artist think about?
Well, let me ask you this question to kind of narrow down a little bit more precisely on what art is. What are some experiences that you have, or some things, some objects or things that are close to art, but you wouldn't quite qualify as art?
Objects that I encounter in my life?
Yeah.
So I would say what I wear. For example, as we can see here, clothing is for me a hugely important part of my life. It's the way I present myself visually. So it's a visual medium similar to painting. But of course, it's not art because it's functional, purely functional. Well, it's not purely functional. It is very aesthetic. A tie is not functional at all. It even limits your functionality, the human body functionality, by restricting it. But the way it looks is very pleasing to the eye. Yeah, and that's,
the way you dress. Maybe other examples, like if onto a beautiful garden that's curated, it's very pleasing, beautiful. Maybe you might use the word aesthetic, but then you wouldn't say it's art. No. So what is it about art that distinguishes it from a beautiful suit that you're wearing, or from a park that is manicured, or even from a beautiful car? I don't know if you're into cars.
Absolutely, yes. Well, my car isn't very beautiful, but I'm also all for beautiful cars. So yeah, absolutely. I think the main difference, as Ayn Rand identified, is in the functionality. Art is purely for the sake of art. A painting has no functionality other than contemplation, other than enjoying it. Also in sculpture and in any other, except architecture, which is a unique category. I don't want to get into that, but most of the arts are strictly art qua art. The sole purpose of it is to enjoy, the beauty of it and the values that it has.
Yeah. So when you're looking, when you can wear a suit, you can drive a car, you can go outside and walk through a park, but when you're in front of a painting, you're not doing something else with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so when you're there in front of what is the experience that you're trying to get to? Is it the same kind of experience as like looking at a beautiful dress on a beautiful woman?
In some aspects, yeah. In some aspects, there are paintings which are the beauty aspect of them is very emphasized. She says, "Wow, it's so beautiful." But there are other paintings where your reaction will be different. You'll be like, look at all these small details and the size, perhaps the sheer vastness of the painting or the historical scene depicted. So so in aesthetics, purely aesthetical. Is that a word? In purely things of beauty, it's only about the beauty. Painting has as many other aspects to it.
So this is interesting because I spent a lot of time in galleries, not just art museums, but contemporary galleries that have a lot of artworks, and then and people that go to galleries to buy art. And the primary motivation often for why you buy a painting or a sculpture in a gallery is almost functional. It's more, will it match the decor of my room? Is it beautiful? And maybe not necessarily get to what it is that you're getting at with with art, that the deeper meaning, the metaphysical visions of the artist. And so would you still consider like, oh, this nice landscape ties the carpet, gets the rug and the drapes all together? Would that still be considered art for you?
Well, I think it's a very interesting question. I think, do you really see all these people and you have come to them and asked them, why are you buying this painting?
Yeah.
And they said, because it matches my
rug.
Well, I'll say for me, I'll buy a painting because I really like it. And I don't care about will match this or that. I really like to have, for examples, I forget the name in English, of the famous Renoir painting, the Luncheon.
Luncheon on the Grass.
Yeah.
No. Is that
no? That's Monet.
That's Monet. That's Monet.
Monet. The famous Renoir with all the people
where they're the boating party.
Yeah, the boating party.
Yeah.
I love this painting so much. I would buy it because I love this painting. So I don't know about looking at it as from a perspective of a purely decorative. I think it's limiting the possibility and the potential that the art has. If you look at a painting just as you look at a vase, I think you're losing. I think you're losing on the experience. For example, I could say about a good example is Van Gogh. Van Gogh's sunflowers. You can look at them pretty much the same as, well, it's a vase, so you can look at it like that. So, but there is so much more into that. There's the life story of the painter, which I personally I'm into that. I'm interested to learn about these stories. There is the specific state of mind of the artist at that moment. And there's historical significance to art history in general. So there's so much more other than the colors are nice. I like the yellow. It fits with my yellow paint.
Okay. May I challenge you a little bit more on that point?
Go ahead.
So you're naming a few things that matter to the artwork, aside from the beauty that you might hang up over your couch, which is the artist's state of mind, the what's going on in the artist's life, maybe the art historical significance, and those are aspects that make it art. But couldn't
No,
you say even
I
this?
wouldn't say that
Oh,
it's an aspect that
okay,
makes it art. The historical significance doesn't make it art. The
okay,
art is in the actual object. The art is an objective thing. It's in there. It's in the painting. That's the art. Um, I'm saying what I said because
yeah,
I think it's a very personal thing. Which painting you will hang in your room
yeah,
is very, very personal choice. And these are categories that I personally attribute significance to. I wouldn't say that these are objective qualities that make it art. What makes it art is the painting itself. It doesn't matter.
okay,
The context doesn't really matter
okay.
if you're looking at
I think,
like that.
yeah, I'll agree with that. But I'll ask you this: what is an experience that you've had that you felt like, oh, this is more than just experiencing beauty. This is more than just eh, seeing something that's aesthetically pleasing. This is something that is an art experience for me. Did you have that with the boating party or with Van Gogh or with something else where you felt as you introspected, yeah, this is a different kind of experience than just simply staring out into the beautiful forest as sunset comes?
So I would want to name an encounter, the first encounter that I had with John Martin, and he's
Mhm.
is very famous. I think you talk about him in your course, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah.
John Martin has a, you know better. He has these huge paintings of horror scene, absolute horror scene. So there's, I wouldn't call them particularly beautiful per
Uh-huh.
beauty's sake, but they are so fascinating and exciting. It's like a horror film, but in painting. And I just remember myself standing and looking at all the details and going, "Wow, this is so amazing! How it did that!" All so, and I'll give you another example. I unfortunately still didn't have the privilege to go to Florence and meet David himself.
Oh,
Um,
I like that you said meet David. Yeah, yeah, I like that you're
for me
treating him as a person.
it's an actual encounter with the, I'm not only seeing the artwork, well, yeah, I would also say it's meeting Michelangelo, because when
Uh-huh.
you're standing in front of the artwork, you're meeting his soul. This is his entire
Oh, I
life.
agree.
He is devoted for that thing. This is essentially him. This is everything that he is. Well, I don't know too much about Michelangelo's history,
Hmm.
but this is a man who like woke up every day, thought about it. When he ate, he was thinking about it. He was working years and years on that until it was perfect. So this is basically him. So so yeah, where was I? So another encounter I would have is
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the David that there is in Victoria and Albert Museum in London. There's a
yeah. Okay.
perfect replica,
Yeah,
one to one
yeah,
replica.
yeah. I remember
And
seeing a photo of that you posted.
yes,
Yeah.
I took a photo of that, me next to it, and I was so amazed just by looking at it. I was just wow, and then I didn't thought I'd get that reaction, because people always say that when you'll see David, you'll be, and I wasn't really buying into that, but when I saw it, I was, that is art, that is the ideal, that is the sublime. We could talk about the sublime later, but that is that great feeling that art can give me.
Okay. So the feeling that you had, the wow feeling, is the experience that you're describing that transcends just simply looking at something that's beautiful.
Yes, yes, I think the emotional response is something that I really look for, because some paintings don't really do it for me, and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
just find them boring. And
Yeah.
I don't think that it needs to be boring. Well, for example, the landscape behind me is very boring. I think it's aesthetically pleasing, but there's
Hmm.
nothing interesting about it. Just a normal rye field with a few trees. That's perfectly fine. Very good detail, great craftsmanship from the artist.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just a background. It's not really. I wouldn't call it. It's not. It has nothing to do with that David encounter or that John
Okay.
Martin encounter. These are different categories.
So you're describing a kind of powerful emotional experience rather than just simply a pleasing one. So what goes into that powerful emotional experience? What makes that happen? What is it about the artwork? What is it about you?
So I would say, first of all, it has the most basic and objective part is the actual technique and skill of the artist himself. It To actually enjoy Van Gogh, it takes study, I think, and it takes practice. I'm not saying that Van Gogh is the greatest artist. Far from that, and he's not the most beautiful. And a lot of his paintings I hate. But to still enjoy Van Gogh, I think you need to do some training for that. But to enjoy John Martin or to enjoy Frederick Church, or David, you don't need to do any preparation.
Okay, so you're differentiating between two kinds of art experiences. One where you can enjoy them simply on their own, but then there's another kind of art experience where getting some of the background or some of the ideas of the artist as part of your experience.
Yes, because I'm particularly interested in that field. So I would say it's a highly personal issue. Which paintings you would enjoy?
And I think I like that a lot. It's very highly personal. May I share a personal experience?
Of course.
This is 4 or 5 years ago when I went to London, National Gallery in London. And oftentimes when I go to an art museum, there are certain artworks that I'm like expecting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Bruegel, or I'm looking forward to seeing the De La Roche, or the Rembrandt. And sometimes there's one that catches me by surprise, and I look at it and I start to piece together what's going on in the scene, and I think to myself, "Oh wow, that's me. And that's not only me, that's what I want to be, and that's what I want my life to be." And it's not often that occurs. I've been to lots of art museums, seen lots of artworks, but there's one particular little painting that I saw, and when I saw it, I'll briefly describe it, and maybe then I'll show it to you.
Yeah, sure.
I saw this knight who looks kind of upset. Even though I can't see his face. And then behind him is this young woman who is reaching over and stuffing a rose into the knight's face. Then it's like masked face. And she has this look of mischievous glee on her face as this knight is like wondering, what's going on? Somebody's attacking me. But he's not being attacked. Well, he's being attacked by the smell of a rose. And as I was looking at that, I was thinking to myself, okay, what's going on? Who are these characters? And then the crucial question for me, the one that got me to thinking about, this made it emotional, this made it personal, was who in my life is like that young woman that would stuff flowers into a reluctant person's face?
Ooh.
And I thought of myself, and I thought of experiences from my past, and I also thought of some good friends of mine, and the kind of people that I like, and the kind of moments that I like to be in, where I'm like, yeah, I think you'll enjoy this, and or helping people break down their barriers, where this knight really has some barriers, and she's like, no, I can help you break that barrier down. Put away that sword. Smell the roses. Do you want to see this painting?
Come on, show it with all these introduction. People are hyped. Oh wow! How come I didn't see this one? I was there tiny. Like a few months ago.
Yeah, and I think it was on loan. Perhaps they didn't have it up the whole time, but I'll zoom in on it. So as I'm looking through this, and I can kind of read it to you. So you see this knight, and he's got his sword at the ready. His left arm is lifted, and you might even be able to see kind of a slight glare in his eyes.
Yeah.
As he's turning one way, as she's kind of fooling him. Look over here.
He looks terrified.
And she's got flowers in her hair. She's obviously playful. And this knight is not expecting this moment of fun, levity.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And from what period is it?
Oh, I think it's probably 19th century. I don't know.
19th century.
Maybe British. I don't remember. So
What about the guy behind?
Oh, that guy behind? He looks kind of sinister, huh? So at this point, I learned that too. Who's that? And what's going on here exactly? And it turns out this is, I think this is some kind of game that was played in the medieval times, where I don't remember the details of the game, but maybe the person behind is like part of the game and like stamping out the time or something like that. But the playfulness of the young woman juxtaposed with the kind of shock and fear and defensiveness of the knight was what grabbed me. And it's the realization I had of that kind of character that this woman is and what she's doing in this moment and how it can have meaning for me and how it does have meaning for me. That's what touched me. That's what made this an art experience for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
So I think over time, this is the kind of thing that I've looked for in the visual arts. A lot of artworks that I've encountered have given me like, oh, that's beautiful, or that's impressive, or wow, that's sublime. And oftentimes it's after a while, after I've started immersing myself in the story a little bit, but then the key question for me has always been, how do I connect this to my life? And most importantly, how do I connect it to myself? I've thought of art as, or the part of the art experience as being narcissistic. You know, Narcissus, the young, handsome Greek youth who stared at himself in the water and fell in love with his own reflection.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at art, I'm always, I want to end up at a point where I am being narcissistic, where I am seeing myself or not seeing myself, where I'm seeing somebody in my life or somebody I don't want in my life. But I try to bring back the experiences that I have, my real life experiences, and superimpose them to see them reflected in that art. So I like to think I'm that young woman. And I've been like that. And I can think of particular moments where I've tried to get somebody to like see something beautiful or see something playful when they were more reserved. I'm a teacher, Jonathan. I'm a teacher. So I encounter that all the time.
Yeah.
Every day. It's like students are like, oh, got to memorize poetry. Mr. Travers got to recite poem. Even today in class. Yeah. I have a bunch of students who are reciting poetry for the first time and they're like, I don't know if I'm ready. So I tried to be that young woman, to put flowers in their face, to break down their armor.
I think it's a beautiful message. Be that young woman.
And then I think embodied in that feeling, embodied in that is the sense of life, is the metaphysical value judgments, not just of the artist and the artwork, but also of myself as it kind of combines. And I'm kind of creating this cloud of an experience that I want to hold on to, that this is the universe. This is the life. This is the existence that I want, that I love.
I think absolutely well put. I'm 100% with you on that, Luke. And I think it's a beautiful transition to explain I think you already did, to explain the huge importance of art and why, as you've demonstrated, I think it's very instinctive and very intuitive to project yourself to the artworks. I think many of us would like to see ourselves as David. Many of us would like to be, they are heroes. We like James Bond. I want to be James Bond. So it's the same kind of. It's the same thing. It's art. So So yeah, but why is it so important to get that, I would say, emotional affirmation that art gives us? And I can testify, especially music, especially Rachmaninoff's or Tchaikovsky's concertos, which I particularly like, has always, when I feel like, "Oh, I can't do it, I'll fail," and then when I listen to Tchaikovsky's first concerto, the whole duration of it, the whole 35 minutes, then it completely changes my feeling. Yeah, I can do it. I'm going to do it. I will succeed. I will not fail. And I think that this is a huge... art is really a tool for that, for not giving up. That's how I use it. That's how I use music. When I feel down, I can listen to that and I know I can finish it.
So your one function of art you're describing is as a source of inspiration for pursuing your values. So I would definitely agree with that. And I went to the symphony on Saturday, and listening to pieces from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. It wasn't necessarily like, I can do it. It's
slow. It's
rah. It was more, it was calming and soothing, but energizing afterwards too. Like, yes, this is an experience that makes me want to live. So I'm curious, if there are two different directions. One is, how does that relate to the visual arts? Or the other direction is, are there any other functions of art besides this kind of inspiration?
So for the first thing, it's the same. That affirmation, for me personally, is really the strongest in music. With all of my love and many words that I write about visual arts, the thing that has been most effective for me is music. But the same thing could be achieved through art. I think it's much rarer. I think it's much rarer in visual arts, but I also think it's highly personal.
Okay. All right. On the quick thought of music there, and I'm trying to, because I think for most people, music is a more directly emotional avenue to having strong feelings than the visual arts. And maybe movies and novels and so forth. And I'm trying to think of why that is. And I there's a formulation I just thought of, and let me know what you think of this.
Okay.
That when you hear a piece of music, you get bundled together the artwork and the experience. When you come across a painting like or the David, you might have a tinge of an experience bundled together. I mean, you're seeing it and you respond emotionally to the thing that you see. But for me, I've got to do a little bit more work. I've got to read the artwork. I've got to ask myself questions, and that brings up connections. And then I'm more invested, and that creates the experience. So I'm much more involved. It's a much less passive experience.
Right.
With music, it's like an infusion. Here's the artwork and the experience. You're having the experience right now as you're listening to the music.
Yeah, and I would add that the experience is so different when you walk to when you sit in a concert. You're sitting. It's all very comfortable. You have something to drink. Maybe you're having a good time. You sit for 40 minutes. You go to a museum. You walk for hours and you stand and your feet hurt, and it's something very different. But I agree with you that I think Ayn Rand also wrote about it, that the music is directly funneled to your how do you say, to your I would use the word soul. It directly touches your soul. Soul in a non-mystical way.
Yeah, and then sometimes the touching of the soul that I have with the visual arts comes after I'm away from the artwork, and I'm reflecting on it a little bit more later on as I'm having cup of coffee in the museum cafe. And
Yeah,
I
it's
think to
more.
myself,
It's also more nostalgic. The paintings are much more nostalgic because they are
what do you mean by
visual.
nostalgic?
It's most of your childhood memories. I think of them
Mm,
as visuals. I don't think of them as sounds. I don't think
hmm.
anyone does. Maybe people who are
Oh, that's
very into
interesting.
music,
Hmm.
but I think uh, art, painting, especially in sculpture, are responding to our memories and to our nostalgia. And a good example is Constable, whose paintings are very very nostalgic of his of his childhood in rural England, with all the nature surrounding and the trees and the rivers, and it's so lovely and beautiful. But when I think it was during the Industrial Revolution that he actually painted these paintings, and these were really not the usual landscapes during these days. So it's a
So it's
longing
nostalgic,
for.
recalling back a previous time period. Now, that's fascinating what you said about the children's memories are often images and not sounds. That's I'm flashing back and I'm thinking that to be true. And I might think of painting and broaden it out more than just nostalgia, because the nostalgia is one kind um, of personal experience, right? It's drawing back from your childhood or from a past that's not there anymore. But you can tap into more contemporary personal experiences, and ask it, like I just did with, thinking about my class this afternoon, that I had with the students who were hesitant to like recite poetry, and then connecting that to the painting, and so I think part of um, one of the things that makes the experience of painting distinctive from novels or literature is that I think in some ways it gives you the room to be able to ask yourself the questions of what does this remind me of in my life. In a movie, you got to watch the movie to follow the story. Sometimes I like to pause the movie, but that's not
Oh,
typically how it's
yeah,
experienced.
I see.
Or when you're listening to music, you can have
And also,
actually you can have things that you're listening, but
yeah,
sometimes it'll bring up memories like that almost automatically. Um, but with visual arts,
it's freezed. Yeah,
it's yeah,
so
and
you
then
have
it
much more time to
invites you
think.
to be yeah, it invites you to be more active minded in the process of experiencing it.
Yeah, I think that's also fascinating. Yeah, just it's like a yeah, it's basically a movie, but you freeze on one frame.
Yeah.
So this one frame is so much significance than any single frame in any movie, and it's and it yeah it touches you on a very much more. I agree. It's much more. Your mind is much more active when you look at a painting because you need to also focus on hearing all the notes and all the chords and yeah.
Wait. Hearing all the notes and the chords, like
I mean
in
in
music, or
music. I mean in music, it's different.
oh, okay. So
Yeah,
your consciousness is consumed by the listening of the music.
yeah.
Okay. Um.
There's yeah.
So what other functions does our art have?
So what we said it's for
Inspiration.
inspiration, enjoyment. We said enjoyment from the actual
It's still
experience.
vague for me. What does enjoyment mean? I mean, inspiration is.
I look at I look at a. I hate to use the same examples. Let's use something different. I look at a painting that you hate, HMS fighting Tamari, and I smile, and I think that's enjoyment.
This is a Turner painting, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I smile because such a lovely painting, and well, I particularly smile because it's about the old, the new, beating the old, and even though he's like negative about the whole thing, I take it to be more positive meaning towards is more benevolent towards the Industrial Revolution, is much more. It's good that the HMS Fighting Tamar is retired. It's good that this disgusting little tugboat is dragging it back. It's a good thing, and I like it.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I don't know where you get the idea that I hate that artwork from because I never said such a thing. Uh, um,
I'm sorry for the
I guess I'm
slanderous
not a big
comment.
fan of Turner in general. I like some
I
Turner,
know
but I'm
that.
not. And so the second thing is, okay, so you said that this is an example of something that you enjoy, about gaining enjoyment.
Yeah.
So what was enjoyable about that? Is it the process of
I
putting
just I
together
just
like the
I
meaning?
just like the scene, you know. I like the
Mhm.
scene. I think it's lovely, and it makes me happy to see it.
Okay.
Another purpose that is highly
Yeah.
personal for me to painting is to use it as a Zoom virtual background. And I
Well, that's
for
like we were talking about before, putting it up on your above your couch and having that functionality to it.
yeah, you're
Okay.
right. It's the same thing. You're right. Um, but yeah, well, so what did we have? Enjoyment, nostalgia. When we're talking about visual
Hmm.
arts, we had, um, and I think another interesting part is that you get a glimpse, uh, as I said before, you get a glimpse to the artist's soul, and you also get a glimpse to the history of what the culture looked like then, what it was like to live during these times, and what did the artists think about these things. And I think it's also, it can serve as a anthropological instrument.
Mm. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, and I'm glad you like put anthropological in front of it because I think that's looking at art outside of art.
Right.
That's looking at art as an illustration of history or a culture rather than focusing on art. So it can be useful for that, but it's not art
It
qua
can, but there
art.
are much more useful
Yeah.
things
Um,
regarding that.
so may I throw in a couple of other things here?
Sure.
So enjoyment, you mentioned enjoyment. I think there's one thing for me that's most enjoyable in all
Okay.
art, in any art, whether it's music or watching Game of Thrones or Star Wars
Is
or
it the story?
drama,
Drama. Okay.
drama,
This.
drama.
Yeah.
Now there's stories that are boring. What makes it
All right.
enjoyable is that there's
Is
drama.
the drama? Yeah.
Is
Okay.
drama. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But
Good point.
that drama presupposes story as well. But even when you're listening to music like the Rachmaninoff that you mentioned, what was that Rachmaninoff piece?
Uh,
Second piano concerto?
the second and third, I come to like the third more recently.
Yeah. So there's drama there.
Yeah.
And I
Lots of
think that
drama.
for enjoyment, for me, it often is in the form of drama. Now, there's other kinds of enjoyment like comedy and laughing a good deal, and I
Right.
enjoy that too. I don't usually find that in the visual arts. Sometimes I do, like the painting I just showed you. I
Right.
laughed out loud in the middle of the National Gallery in London when I started making the connections and thinking that's yeah, that connects me. So something else I think you're hinting at is self-reflection.
Self-reflection.
Yeah. So this is a way of processing other kinds of experiences within yourself that you might not feel inspired by, that might give you clarity on something that, okay, this is not fun. It's clear. It shows me something. It shows me something that I have experienced that is part of the makeup of life, like something that's tragic. What did the Greeks call that? They called it oh, what's that word? Catharsis.
But catharsis.
Catharsis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the process, don't bottle up, feel the emotions of something that is difficult to experience. So that's one thing. Or as also as a way of thinking to yourself, okay, this is something that I don't want in my life. Like not a vision, it's a vision, not that's going to inspire you to something, but that's going to help guide you to not go in that direction. Or is it? There's a painting of a couple who aren't speaking to each other,
Okay.
and yeah, it's in the book. Maybe I'll pull it up. But they look like they're a couple, but at this moment there's obviously a tension and a gap between, and that's not fun to see, but it's dramatic. And it also provides this kind of vision that I can keep in my mind is, okay, this is a perfect illustration of a relationship deteriorating. And I can be more aware of that idea. And I've had relationships deteriorate all my life. but it takes it, forms it into a concrete that's vivid, and says, "Pay attention to this. Maybe look for it in the future and be aware of it."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and then so I'd say that's maybe we're talking about some functions of art that this is where I'm a little bit iffy. Which ones are functions of art that really tie into the nature of art? Which ones are kind of additional little functions that are beneficial, like having a beautiful artwork as a background for your Zoom?
So the latter is definitely doesn't have to do with art, and I think again I think one of the biggest thing that underlies it all is personal preference, and you look and I agree with that what you said about things to stay away from and things that you want to be. I think are very very strictly tied to the function of art and are not personal. I think all art that is really good will talk about something like that. So, and I think it also depends on the genre of the painting.
Okay.
And I think it's another topic for discussion about the different genres, because when it's a still life painting, I don't know if you could get what you should stay away from, what you.
What if I said you could?
Well, all right. Do you have an example for that?
Sure. Take any still life. First of all, what is a still life painting?
Renoir said something interesting. He used that as like it was his getaway. You know, when you sit in front of a model painting him or her, it's a very difficult thing. She's complaining. You want to do it. There's pressure. You want to be accurate. It's expensive. There are all these things. But when you sit in front of a bowl of fruits, all of that pressure is gone. It's just you with the art. And he used that. I read it in his great, excellent biography of Renoir that I read, where there's a quote of him. I could find it somewhere. And he says that it's such a huge relief for me to paint still life. So that's one example of why painters chose to paint still life. It's some kind of an exercise also.
So then your question is, okay, Luke, how does that relate to seeing drama or maybe seeing a story and then personally connecting to what's going on? And so I would, of course, what you provided was like, here's an example from the artist's perspective of why they might create a still life, because that you don't need to pay the fruit, or you don't have a time constraint. You can get up in the middle of the night, get your and just do some painting for fun. So of course I'm going to see it from the audience perspective, immersing ourselves into a story, suspending disbelief. And the way I see still life, which is a gathering of objects together, I see it as telling a story. I see it as props for a set. I see it as these are objects that belong to someone, that belong to a character. So there is characterization there imbued, and also the objects that are laid out in a particular manner imply some kind of activity. Now, in art history, that's not the primary purpose that often artists use for still life, and that's not the primary kind of still life. You get, I guess, a few basic kind of still lifes. You get bowls of fruits, or the Dutch love to have, some half-eaten meal, or with polished silver. You get certain kinds of still lifes that imply almost the same kind of story, and that they are the same kind of symbolism, and the interest is not in a narrative. The interest is often on, let me demonstrate my style and technique, or the beauty of the world captured in the smallest details of the world, rather than a landscape. But I like to look at still life as, if you had to broaden out that painting and include people in it doing things, what are these objects suggest that they're doing and who they are? And there's still.
Why don't you give us an example of what sort of drama you see in a bowl of fruits? Because I think some of the viewers could be a bit skeptical about that.
I'll give you one. And this I'll reach back to an experience of a painting that I don't have an image of, and I don't think I'll ever have an image of. It was some kind of small exhibition at the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena, maybe 15 years ago. But I remember coming across a bowl of fruit. It was, I'm pretty sure, it was some kind of orange fruit, little, I don't know, kumquats or something, or maybe even oranges. And you, with still life, you have that. Oh, those look beautiful.
Yeah.
They look more real than real. I wish my fruit would look like that. So there's a little bit of a recreation of reality that's even more beautiful than your own reality, which I think is a part of art. But looking at it from the way I like to look, where's the story there? And there were a couple of things that caught my eye. You could kind of see outside a little bit. And I don't remember if it was a beautiful day or a snowy day, but I think it might have been kind of like a cold looking day a little bit. And then there was another detail that really caught my attention. There were finger imprints left on the bowl. As if somebody, I think there was some kind of smudges, as if somebody had just picked these from outside. And so those were a couple little hints to building a story of what has happened, and this bowl of fruit was kind of the end result. And I wish I remembered more of the details, but I remember coming away from it like a narrative, like, oh, somebody went out before the storm, got the fruits out of the garden to this bowl that maybe the shape of the bowl and the function of the bowl were important. But I could tell that somebody had just picked them because of the smudges. And so all of this kind of made me think, okay, when in my life have I gathered something that was so delicious and beautiful before something terrible happens outside, or that I just want to look at and display? So there was an implied story there. And I think you can look at a lot of landscapes like that. Maybe here's an example of a narrative painting.
Landscape is
different. Sorry, still life. I'll give you an example of a narrative painting from my book Stories in Paint that has a still life embedded in it, so that if you wanted to, you could look at just the still life portion and see an implied story that is filled out by the rest.
Okay.
Here, you want to look at it?
Yes.
All right. So, okay, what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to show you the still life portion. Oh, I don't know if I'll be able to do that, but we'll see what happens. So here is this. All right. So are you seeing it? Are you seeing what you have here is a table. It's a very shiny table with all these different objects on them. Yeah. And so I would take a look at that isolated and see a still life. And then this still life is part of a bigger painting of this young woman who might be a servant or might be the lady of the house, who looks like she might have been doing some cleaning with that apron on, and then pulled one of the cups up to stop and to stare at its beauty.
Or to look for
maybe. I kind of like to think that she's looking at the beauty of it because of that smile that she's got.
Yeah, or maybe she's pleased because it's clean.
Yeah. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, but I think you're cheating a little bit here.
How so?
Because it's not a pure still life.
I would say, if that's looking at the history of still lifes, I'd say most of them are not necessarily art.
Oh, that's a strong statement right there, Luke.
If it's just kind of a study of some objects,
it usually is.
And it usually is. And so that's why I say most of them I don't really think of as the kind of art, maybe I'll put it this way, as the kind of art that I enjoy, that I find enjoyment in contemplating.
Okay, I think that's a less controversial claim to make. I want to give another example of still life. Do you know Van Gogh's crabs?
Yeah.
It's also in National Gallery. I can't put it on the maybe I'll put it in editing on the screen for the viewers. It's a very simple painting, you know, two crabs, and I first remember when I went to the National Gallery, I completely ignored it. Just two stupid crabs. What
stupid
is this? Yeah, what is this? But then, you know, as I learned more, I realized that Van Gogh was really into Japanese prints. What are they called? Manga prints, I think.
Manga, yeah.
Yeah, and he got like tens or even hundreds of these magazines of Japanese prints, and he really loved them. He loved them so much. It was his favorite thing. He had like his whole room was filled with these things, and in these prints, there were crabs, and you know, many prints of crabs, and he was so into that kind of thing. And he loved these crabs so much that he decided to recreate these crabs in his own style. And, you know, just two crabs because he likes crabs. That's so simple.
Yeah,
right?
I love it.
But it's still, it's interesting. I think it's, and it shows
absolutely
his, I would say, his purity or innocence, that he just, or lack of cynicism. He just liked crabs, and he's a painter. So he wanted to capture what he liked.
Yeah. I love that. I love that idea. I love it.
Yeah, and it's the function of art. He was recreating reality and projecting his metaphysical value judgments. That's what he likes. That's his values. You know, and here they are. And I don't think he intended for them to.
Yeah, the follow-up question I have that you said he is projecting his values, but how is he projecting his metaphysical values?
It's his view of entire approach to view of existence is projected by the style and the lightness and the almost childlike approach to these crabs. With there's bright green background and the colors aren't very realistic, but that's how he likes it.
So it's the metaphysical value judgments, your view of the nature of realities is embedded in the style with which you paint. And so that's something that's going to naturally come out because it's a part of you, because you're the one doing the painting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's a good example of that I liked of still life. I'm still I should study more this genre of painting. I think it's a very interesting one, especially the Dutch ones. There are some magnificent examples, as you all may know. All right, so now we don't have much time. So I would like to discuss. Let's see. All right, let's talk about the sublime. I know it might take a while. That's fine, but I want to talk about what is it? What's the deal with it? Why is it so? Why was such a big deal in the 19th century?
Okay, now that's a interesting question, because when you shared the list of the topics, I was kind of surprised. Oh, the sublime, and I had to give it a little bit of thought. And here's the way I approached it, thinking about it. One was, okay, the art historical way was to go back and take a look at a little bit of what do artists think of the sublime and how is it captured in art. And the other was, okay, what is the sublime in my life?
Good.
And kind of going back and forth between the two, I started thinking about, okay, there's a contrast between beautiful and the sublime. Like looking outside right now, I'm seeing a beautiful afternoon with the sun shining on the leaves, and the leaves are reflecting golden little glints as the sunshine sprays down, and I'd say that's beautiful. And
but is that sublime? It's beautiful.
And then I would say, according to that 19th century, no. And I was asking myself, okay, what is the sublime that they describe that that I would feel? And I think it's the excitement I get when something overwhelmingly powerful that is not beautiful starts to take over. Like, Jonathan, I like hurricanes.
You like hurricanes?
Hurricanes, yes.
What do you like about
Not
hurricanes?
not for the destruction that they cause, but for the thrill of something overwhelmingly powerful that I'm in the middle of.
That's sublime.
And that's how I'm thinking of describing what the sublime is. But I'm curious what brought that idea of the sublime for you?
So
why is that important to think about?
it's important for me because my favorite, always my favorite paintings are, they have this theme of sublime. Caspar David Friedrich, whom I really like, has the sublime in a lot of his paintings. Actually, the meaning is not positive. It's a very religious. He was a very religious man who's it was far away from empowering man, but rather making man look smaller. And I take the sublime as I can do it. I can beat all the hardships. I can do these big assignments, big tasks. I can achieve my goals, and to be that ideal. And that's what I ascribe sublime to be. It's that feeling when you, for example, I come from the marketing world, where when I work on a big marketing campaign for a Facebook on Facebook, there's lots of work into that. But when it actually works and get results, there's this feeling of it worked. Despite all the difficulties, and perhaps I wasn't sure if it's right or
okay. No, this is interesting. So it's some things are crystallizing here, and I'm still going off of like the contrast between beauty and sublime, and so a couple of words that I'm grabbing onto what you're describing there is it's big and it's a challenge, and at the end of it you're going to feel like, oh, I just overcame something tremendous, and there's a thrill at doing that. And I think that big, grand, feeling overwhelmed kind of experience, I think I see that a lot in Caspar David Friedrich and in other artists that I might call sublime. And I'm contrasting that to the Garden of Eden, contrasting that to the calm, pastoral beauty that you might often come to with the term beautiful. Beautiful is peaceful, is graceful, is stable. It's not chaotic. The sublime will be overwhelming. Thinking of Caspar David Friedrich, you remember the monk staring out at the ocean?
Of course.
With the vast gray sky that overwhelms him. Yeah. For me, it's the experience of a hurricane, or I drove into this magnificently huge green cloud formation that looked like it was housed some kind of alien force when I was driving through North Dakota. And that feeling was thrilling to me. Oh my goodness, this is overwhelming. And I want to feel it. And the feeling, and it's so often for me, it's like captured in nature. So it's interesting you like brought up like an experience in the finance world, because I think it can be transferred. Like when you're pursuing some kind of challenge, some values, and then suddenly you have this daunting thing to take over. So you can describe Caspar David Friedrich as being religious. And it's interesting that he's not trying to capture, here is the beauty of God. Here's, God is manifested in the beauty of nature. And it's not God manifested in the wrath of nature like John Martin. It's God manifested in something overwhelming. It's tempestuous. I've got a painting for you.
Okay.
So it's not from a typical painter of the sublime, but I think it captures for me the experience of being sublime and kind of putting together the story of the painting.
All right.
It's one from Stories in Paint, and it's actually by late 19th century American artist. So beyond the typical like early 19th century.
Well, most of the American school, Hudson River School painters, they were highly influenced, and some of them actually learned in Düsseldorf painting.
Yeah.
So there's a big connection there.
All right, so I'll share this image with you. See what you make of it.
Oh, it reminds me of the, with the ice. What's it called? The shipwreck.
Oh yeah. Oh, with
Yeah,
Caspar David Friedrich shipwreck. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm thinking like a Russian soldier walking in Siberia with his hunting rifle to protect him from bears, and it's very cold.
Yeah. So what is he doing right now? Is he walking?
He's no, he's staring at the view. It's a there's a very beautiful view, but we can't see it. We see him.
All right. And what do you see as part of this view over here?
What is it? The glaciers, just
Yeah,
snow.
maybe glaciers, maybe
It's cloud.
snow.
Maybe it's a cloud. No,
Yeah, maybe clouds.
maybe above it's a cloud. Uh, I just it's so cold there.
Yeah, you're
It
feeling the
feels
cold, isn't it
it
cold?
feels so
What words
cold.
would you use to describe the mood of this place?
Uh, I think I think of the French invasion to Russia.
Okay, you're thinking, oh no, well that's kind of describing maybe like a historical narrative, but what about the mood? What is it?
The mood it's frightening. It's a bit frightening. I
Yeah,
think it's dangerous.
yeah,
He might freeze to death, or you run out of food.
yeah. And you know what? This is one at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and it's fun to see it in person. Look at his attitude and the way he's standing. One leg anchoring him, the other one forward, his gun
What is he
down and his chin
carrying?
lifted. Oh, that's a goose. That's a
That's a
goose. He's
goose.
done his
Okay.
hunting. He's not hunting anymore.
Oh, okay,
He's
that's
just
good.
staring out at the vista, whatever that chaotic, terrifying vista is. He's looking out at it.
Yeah, he's capable. Yeah,
He's not sheltering, running away from it. He wants to take it in.
yeah,
And
he's
so
unafraid.
that state of mind, that consciousness of, okay, I it is overwhelming and awe-inspiring and slightly terrifying, but I want to see it.
Yeah,
And there's a poem that I like that captures that feeling for me, that feeling of experiencing the sublime. I'll give you one part of it. Clouds beyond clouds above me, wastes beyond wastes below, but nothing drear can move me. I will not, cannot go.
oh wow. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Emily Bronte.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and
So
it's the same pose. It's kind of the same pose as the wanderer above the sea of fogs.
it is a little bit. Yeah. So this is American artist Winslow Homer, with a scene from Maine and with the coastal scene. So the water's rushing up against a coastal winter scene in Maine.
Yeah, and it doesn't look that small compared to other painters' approach.
Yeah. So that's
It's
true. Yeah.
interesting. It's
So
very
then
interesting.
to contrast this, you might have like Maine in the springtime where he's sitting there having a picnic, or that image that you have in your Zoom background,
Yeah,
which captures a little bit more of the calm beauty.
yeah,
So I think that's for me. That's what's helpful, and I really like that you connected it to an experience and like feeling overwhelmed and the challenge of being in finance, something like that.
yeah. I think it's one of it's just personally it's one of the experiences that I look for in art, and there are people who aren't like that. They want something much more.
And I can see why you
calm.
like Joseph Turner with that, because I think he captures that a bit of that kind of sublime, the clouds twirling about, it's kind of hazy. You don't know whether that ship is going to make it or not, and you enter this world of mystery, uncertainty that might feel a little bit overwhelming. I think landscapes. We talked a little about still lifes. I think
Yeah.
landscapes capture more of metaphysical value judgments than maybe even narrative art, more explicitly at least. It lays out this is the kind of universe that I think is
Yeah.
that it's made up of.
And when you
Is
place man, you're also saying what is man's place in the universe.
Yeah.
Is man capable of surviving? Is man capable of mastering nature, or is just a small monk in front of that vastness, and he's just so small and insignificant? So
Yeah. No,
I think I wrote a whole essay about it, and landscape is my favorite genre, and I think that's why it is. Personally, I don't like historical paintings that much.
Oh my goodness. I love historical paintings, especially when I don't know the history and when the painting doesn't focus too much on trying to tell all the details of the history, but tries to have an image that will impact you, and then there might be subtle little hints as to what's going on in the story. So yeah, I'm not, there's some history paintings like too precise.
I would say with your tour, history paintings are much more enjoyable, because, and I think it's a great place to conclude. Luc is doing great museum tours, and he is able to take you in I think he has given us a good hint here, how to look at the art, how to experience it, to get actual experience that you won't be able to get it by yourself, because especially if you studied like art history, people are they're looking at it from a very, very theoretical perspective, like I'm most of the time doing. They're looking at it from a very theoretical perspective, which actually doesn't have anything to do with the experience of art.
May I jump in here real quick? Because
Yes.
I like that you make that distinction. I think you're right. Art historians are the ones who would say, this is a very different approach. But I think you mentioned before that there's a kind of instinct to want to enjoy a story and also to see yourself in the story a little bit. And I think for somebody that does not like art museums or does not think that they would enjoy the visual arts, that's who I want to reach out to and say, yes, if you like movies, if you like reading novels, then you can enjoy the visual arts too, because you'll get something that's similar to, but also distinctive from those forms.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we could use, I could put all the links for you have a Facebook group and the website.
Touchingtheart.com. If you want to find me, touchingtheart.com.
I'll put the links in the description. Great. You could buy Luc's beautiful book. It's a bit expensive, but it's worth it.
Is it beautiful or sublime?
It is. I think it's both. It has a bit of both.
That's true. I'm glad that's true. Yep, it's beautiful.
I think some sublime themes are beautiful. I think I would send you a beautiful painting of a storm in the sea, and it's just so beautiful. But it is also sublime.
For another time, huh?
For another time. So Luc Travers, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you here. A real privilege, and I'll see you hopefully in the future, in a future episode perhaps. And
would love to.
Thank you for blessing us with your time. Any final words?
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the wonderful conversation, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Luc. And I'll see you in the next episode, viewers. Thank you.